Paddock Mall Studios. This is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Children will change the world, Robin. It's the children that'll make a difference in the future, and we got to make sure they know what they need to know in order to do that. So I'm going to use my own childhood as a way to underscore what I just said.
Okay.
So in the 60s, you and I, not in the same school, but you and I were in elementary school in the 60s, right?
Yes.
And actually, I was in the other schools as well. But in the 60s, I was in elementary school, and there was a campaign to pick up litter. Do you remember, like, there was a thing, what's one little piece of litter? Nothing, but put enough of them together and it showed this cartoon, and the whole city, this was New York City, was filled with trash, right?
Yes.
Right? So the whole mindset to us kids from the adults was, don't throw your stuff on the ground. Pick it up, put it in the garbage pail. So it's ingrained in me, like brushing my teeth every morning is ingrained in me, right? Yeah. So as you get older and you start doing things and you start being aware more of your environment, you're driving behind a bus and you're smelling the fumes and you're going, well, that can't be good, right? And then you read all these stories about how the New York City was so polluted. Los Angeles, I remember flying into LA in 1977 and looking out the window and seeing this big like dome of smog just hanging over that city. And of course, everybody in those years was saying we need to do something about the pollution. Well, why didn't we actually pay attention? Now we're dealing with all this other stuff, and if we had paid attention back then, we wouldn't have maybe some of the bad circumstances we have now. Whatever we've learned and whatever progress we've made, it's probably not enough. And I'm not just picking on the United States, by the way. Other countries are as guilty, if not more guilty, than us. All right, I'm going to have to apologize to our guest because I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I'm going to say Nagy. B.F. Nagy is the journalist. I think Robin said his name is Bruce. Climate leader for the Climate Reality Project, founded by Al Gore. He writes and produces public communications and reports for clean energy research and trade organizations. He is part of an advocacy group that includes the Sierra Club and the Friends of the Earth. His book is called The Clean Energy Age. Bruce, I think. Good morning, Bruce. Thank you for being on the show with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Please pronounce your last name so I don't get it wrong again.
Oh, most people just say Nagy with the hard G and the hard A.
Okay, and that's right? Nagy?
Yeah, it's a Hungarian name. I think they say it a little differently over there.
Oh, okay. And where are you calling from?
Toronto. I'm in Canada.
How is the air in Toronto? Because I've been in Toronto also. I don't remember that being too much of a problem.
Well, they closed all the coal plants here, so that made a big difference.
Oh, okay.
They did that about 5 years ago, and immediately, like they have a measurement, I guess, on the Weather Channel that measures smog days and stuff like that, and it went down to zero.
Do you know what I always say? The whole political aspect of global warming is, to me, it's almost a moot point, because whether you think it's warming up or not, I mean, we should all try to be good stewards and just keep the place clean. I think keeping it clean would solve all the problems.
Well, I think a lot of people talk about global warming, but let's just talk about asthma for kids. The little tiny lungs they're breathing. There's good science showing that if you have coal, spewing a lot of particulate into the air, you're going to have higher rates of asthma. So
yeah, okay, and
that's just one example of bad health.
And so there, with that, just that one point, do we have some cities that are having worse asthma than other cities attributed to pollution?
Absolutely, yes. It's pretty well documented. The science of global warming and of pollution is has been done, and unfortunately it's been turned into a political thing that's debated, but 97% of the world's scientists agree on it, so it really shouldn't be something that's debated. There's more consensus on on climate science than there is on, whether the world is round.
That's interesting. But I mean, okay, but let's just for the sake of the people who don't agree that it's warming, I mean, it's hard to deny that air pollution is a bad thing. I mean, isn't that enough to get us off our butts and start to do something?
Yes, I think so. And not only that, but I don't really spend a lot of time dealing with the problem. I work on solutions, which is because I am a practical person like you. And for me, I want to think about some of the benefits of some of the solutions that we have. And one of the big ones is that people can save money. So, for example, the things that you need, this book contains top 10 lists. It has top 10 lists for homeowners, a top 10 list for a business person, a top 10 list for a government programmer, a top 10 list for an investor, a kitchen table investor. It has top 10 lists of climate actions, and most of them save you money. So, buy an electric car, you're going to save up to $20,000 in gas over the life of that car if you keep it for the 10 years or whatever, right? But fix your home, insulate it properly, and I guess you're in Florida, you won't need as big a cooling system to cool it, right? You might be able to get away with no cooling system if it's properly insulated with the proper windows and so on, right? So you're going to save on that, right? In Florida, a lot of people are putting the solar panels on the roof, and that saves you money.
So. Well, have you heard this story? I looked it up real quickly so I could give you the date. The end of 2018. It's already October. The end of 2018, Disney World will be having. Well, they will have the solar panels set up so that they will have 2 of their 4 parks, the electricity for 2 of their 4 parks from solar. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's amazing. And not only that, but there are many, many states in the Union now who are walking away from the gas and the coal and powering their whole states. One of the centers of what you would expect to be the oil capital of the world, Texas, is number 1 in wind power and number 5 in solar in the Union. So it's a real, and the reason is because wind and solar plants are much cheaper. They're cheaper to operate and they're cheaper to build, and you can build them in 6 months instead of 16 years like a nuclear plant, or 5 years like a gas plant,
Well, usually
plus cleaner.
Usually, when there's political resistance to something, it's because somebody else is afraid they're going to lose money. If that is true, and if at the same time it's true that you can make money by either manufacturing solar panels or wind turbines or something, I mean, you would think that the people who are complaining would just shift tracks. I mean, look what's happening to Sears. I mean, Sears is going out of business because they didn't keep up with the times. Amazon is, so just do it the new way, and you'll be happy.
Yeah, I think the problem is that we, to some extent, we environmentalists have failed to evolve too. We have not shifted the conversation quickly enough to solutions and benefits. Because let's face it, most people are dealing with, putting food on the table, putting tuition money, where it needs to go, paying their mortgage. Most people are sort of weekend environmentalists, right? So, and that's understandable. So you need to discuss with them what they get out of it. Can they save capital budget at work? Can they get promoted? Can they, save, how much will they save on their cooling? System, right?
Well, okay, but maybe the conversation coming from the leadership of the country should be, here's what you can do, what you as an individual can do. Because I think hearing the UN, for example, say, we've got to do something about the problem, well, are you talking to industry, or are you talking to me as an individual? Because I need to, if you were telling me what to do, I'm going to tell you, I have a 60-watt light bulb on when I'm home, and that's it.
Right.
I don't have a whole lot going on. So
I think we have to recognize too that first of all, national governments it's always going to be a little bit of political gamesmanship because they can't say anything that's going to satisfy everybody. And in many ways, what's happening in the White House today isn't that important when it comes to environmentalism, although they've been making it more and more important. But most of the action is at state level and municipal level because most of the decisions that affect our environment are the jurisdiction of those governments.
Right.
So, and actually there's a lot of good progress, but you don't hear much about it because the media tends to focus on the national news, right? So, but I think one of the things that we do need to recognize, and I live in Toronto, and it's cold up here, and it's silly for me to be an activist and go out and strap myself to a pipeline while I have an SUV in my driveway and a gas furnace in my basement, right? Like, that's silly. That's, so I think it starts at home. We need to accept a certain responsibility ourselves. And the other thing we need to do is recognize that, the big bad government and the big bad corporation is us. We are the corporations. We are the government.
Absolutely.
We are part of those organized. I actually worked in government, and I realized one day that pretty much all of their processes and systems are designed to take the feedback of the public and channel it into policy.
Right.
I didn't really think of it that way until I was actually working in government.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we need to take advantage of our democracy and talk to our leaders.
Absolutely. That is a good step. But let me ask you this. If you could just take it out of this country, and we see pictures from India and China, and they some of the, like is it Beijing that has the worst pollution? Are they not on board with this whole idea? I mean, you would think, again, just going back to living in a cleaner environment, that they would want to be.
China is the leader in wind power, the leader in solar, the leader in passive house. They're the leader in every single clean technology on Earth, but they're also the leader in coal. It's just because they're so big, right? But they are making the transition, and their per capita pollution is lower than ours in North America. Because we have a different density of people, right? So our per capita problem is worse than theirs, but their total problem is worse than ours.
Okay.
I don't know if it helps us to point fingers at each other. I think we all have to kind of work together. But Beijing
right. I understand that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think one of the things we think as Americans is we're trying. And when somebody tries to make us feel bad as Americans, I think, and I'm not pointing fingers, but if you look at I just went to Wikipedia, the top 7 most polluted cities are all in India.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to change too. The new guy, Modi, he's been doing a wholesale transition to solar there, so they're trying to move their society towards a cleaner situation. Just as much like Florida, because Florida was a little bit of a laggard, but now you've caught up, done a very good job with solar.
And your book isn't just based on your own opinion. You've done hundreds of interviews with all of the experts throughout your career of being a journalist. You've dug into stories and tried to extract all the facts.
Yeah, well, what happened was my son said, "Hey, Dad, we're different. We're doing something." And at the time, I was an ad agency creative director, chasing the American dream, and I went, "Oh, maybe I'm not." So I switched my career, and I've done about 150 clean energy articles in the last 17 years and interviewed over 700 experts, mostly architects, engineers, and government planners, and, people who know about smart grid and things like that.
Well, here in this part of the state, we have a lot of rivers and a lot of boats on those rivers, and I know there's a lot of rules regarding the fuels that those boats use. However, I think just going to the rivers, you can clearly see that there's, it depends on the weekend. If it's a busy weekend, there's usually a film of something on those
gasoline,
rivers. Oil. Does that contribute in a large way? What does the research show on the water-bound engines?
Well, I think the boats are one thing, and another problem is that it's hard to to enforce some of the rules for industry who dump a lot of stuff in there, right? And I think there are rules against it, and there are organizations like Riverkeeper who try to keep an eye on it and try to sue the violators. But I think in general a good policy is to say that polluters should pay. So governments are all arguing and debating what our policy should be, but I think if I smash my car into your car, your insurance is going to sue me. And I think that if you wreck my only world, the only planet I have, that it's a civil matter. People who pollute should pay.
You also talk about reforming agriculture.
I don't talk about it too much, and the reason I don't talk about agriculture too much is that there are three areas where we have a very high consensus also among experts about the solutions. And the three areas are buildings, vehicles, and power plants. Agriculture is a huge problem with a lot of complexity, and actually I would prefer to focus on the three areas where we have a lot of consensus about best practices and solutions, because we can make real progress against 70% of our problem in those three areas. So yes, we should do something about agriculture, but it's not at the top of my priority list. The other three areas are higher. Having said that, I would never dissuade anyone whose passion or area or field of study is helping fix up the agriculture problem.
The book is called The Clean Energy Age. It's written by our guest B.F. Nagy, Nagy. And
yep.
I wanted to ask you to talk about the book a little bit, to be fair to the book. Does the book give me ideas on what I can do as an individual, and or does it give larger, like corporations and governments, ideas on what can be done?
Well, there are a dozen top 10 lists in there. Some of them are for homeowners. Some of them are for, servers in a restaurant. Some of them are for urban planners. And then others are for business people, government people, and so on. So it has corporate examples. It has success stories, tons of success stories. And it has, how to save capital budget, how to, improve, how to start new businesses, because it's a whole, many industries are being disrupted, and there are many opportunities.
Because of all the devastation from Hurricane Michael recently, when people start to rebuild, do you think that they're going to rebuild smarter with clean energy in mind and install more solar panels and things like that they normally didn't have before?
Well, I guess that's the hope. What seems to be happening in the construction area is that most of the municipalities have passed pretty progressive building codes now. So the new construction usually has to meet certain levels, but it varies from state to state. It varies from municipality to municipality. So I don't know, but I do know this: when Katrina wiped out a lot of the Ninth Ward Brad Pitt went down there and built some green homes that cost almost nothing to cool, and they cost about the same to build. And he did that by hiring architects because he was determined to prove that it could be affordable.
Oh, wow.
So one of the things we need to realize is that there's a lot of mythology around clean tech, and it has changed a lot. So it's not as expensive as it used to be, and there are lots of builders who are building properly. You just have to, make a determined effort and find the progressive guys, I think.
Just going back to Disney World, their solar array, is that what you call it? Right? It looks like the Mickey Mouse logo, by the way.
Yeah.
I just saw a picture of it. All right, so give us some of the things that we can do. Tell me what I can do.
So I think one of the most important things in the United States is to buy an electric car. And this year, 300,000 electric cars will have been sold in 2018, which is a big increase and a big surprise, actually.
Okay.
So Americans are voting with their wallet, and that's a huge thing. And you will save a lot on your maintenance. You can get them for a more competitive price. Tesla just announced yesterday that they're finally going to offer one that's not for rich people.
That has been a problem, yeah.
Yeah, and even without Tesla, the Chevy Bolt is a beautiful car. It's $40-something thousand. In most states, there's some kind of a rebate. There's also a tax credit, $7,500.
Can I tell you the argument? This is not mine, and I would love to have an electric car. But when this has come up before, I'm going to tell you what the callers will say. And in fact, the phone is ringing right now. But if you're calling right now, I just want to have a conversation. So, because I kind of know the dialogue that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So this is what you might hear if I were to answer the phone. And I don't know what people are calling about. But it would be when I plug in my car to my house, the electricity comes from a coal burning plant someplace. Aren't I still polluting the air, just not directly?
Absolutely. So it's not, ideal, obviously. So you need to vote for somebody who's going to buy wind and solar, which is cheaper anyway, and it'll reduce your taxes. I mean, look what happened in Georgia and in North Carolina when they, ignored all the experts and said, oh, we're building nuclear. Well, they ended up spending billions, and then nuclear plants never got completed because the budget went over, doubled in about a year right away, and they've shelved one of the projects that was 2 reactors, and the other one, they're still arguing about it. I don't know whether they're going to shelve it or not. But, sometimes you just have to look at the economics instead of the rhetoric. So yeah, vote for the people who are going to build wind and solar farms instead of coal and gas. But the other thing that your callers might say is, what about range? Because there's a lot of mythology around electric cars. But now they're like 200 or 300 miles on a single charge. There's 50 or 60,000 chargers across the country, and ChargePoint says they're going to add 2.5 million in the next 6 years.
If I go,
because they are projecting that 1 in 4 cars will be an electric car in America.
If I drive the 300 miles and I'm on E, how long does it take to recharge the car?
Well, now the latest reports are there are a bunch of companies offering a 12 to 15-minute charge. So you go in and have a cup of coffee.
Oh, okay.
But that's not you'll probably only get 75% of your battery charge. But it'll get you home.
But that's better than it was, wasn't? Didn't it used to be like 8 hours?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, it still is. It still is generally. Like, I don't want to mislead you. If you buy a car today, most of your charging will be done at home, and most of the time it'll take all night, right? But if you buy the very most expensive, latest tech, then you can get the 12-minute charge, right? So there's a whole range of options. But the reason I'm talking about the 12-minute charge is to give you an indication of what's coming in the next few years.
Okay, got it. Well, good stuff. Thank you, Bruce, for being on with us today. Again, the book is called The Clean Energy Age. Bruce,
yes, and we have a Christmas special, a pre-Christmas special on, but you have to go to my website, bfnagy.com, that's N-A-G-Y, and get the promo code. And then there's a big button there that says Order Book. You click that, and it takes you through to the publisher, and you can use the promo code, and you can get 30% off pre-Christmas.
All right, nice. and I did find it on Amazon as well. Hey, thank you, Bruce. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for what you're doing. I think it's going to ultimately make this a better place.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
It's that time again. VAFO's Ocala Arts Festival, one of the most loved events of the community, is coming the 27th from 10 till 6 and the 28th from 10 till 5 down